I think that was part of what made that experience so awesome was like being surrounded by so many just really high caliber people. And if I felt like it forced me to be on my A game, even if my A game might not be as good as, every other person's A game, but that's like, you feel like you're being challenged and you're growing, right? You're learning from the people around you. That's one of the best feelings. And so, yeah, that was really, really great. Just ask now, since, you touched on the topic of the guy you hired who didn't have the pedigree, who, didn't have all the typical markers that you might look for and just came in and ended up being one of the best. Because you've hired a ton of people at this point, right? And so for you to call him one of the best hires you've ever made, I think that says a lot. And so, especially having been on the types of teams that you've been on, right? They're all very high performing teams, I would say. And so what do you look for when you're hiring? Like, are there certain qualities that almost always indicate someone will be successful and a great addition to the team? Or like, are there certain things that you're like, hey, when I interview people, I always test for this,
Yeah.
or I always ask this question? Like, is there anything like that?
I think having interviewed a lot of people, like I say, I would to get to a point, maybe it's hundreds, maybe even nearing 1,000 interviews probably. I think once you get to that number of interviews, you start to kind of really sharpen your BS radar. And I think one of the things I always tested for was how sincere was this person's answers. And I look for authenticity. I think, and please don't take my interview style as work, but it worked for me. I think I hired some really great people. What worked for me is anybody that was kind of fake their authenticity in an interview couldn't really be somebody that I would trust to be in the trenches with in terms of having, responsibility and accountability. So I always look for authenticity in their answers, and one of the hires I made even at Square after you had left, it was interesting. This panel, I think the panel was like 6, 7 people, and every single one of them was no on this candidate. And I felt strongly about this candidate's just authenticity on his answers, the honesty in his answers.
Hmm.
And he is still one of my closest contacts that I've kept in touch with. And in the download session with all the panel, I fought for him.
Yeah.
I fought for him. Like, I know all the concerns that were brought up, but I think, he was the most honest interview that I felt like, we need to give this candidate a chance. And I think probably 4 or 5 months later, after he was hired, it was pretty much consensus that the entire panel thought we made the right hire. First one in the office, last one to leave, just productivity cranking out. Business partners loved him. It was just one of those things where, like, a lot of times interviews, you think you want to prep and you want to say the right things or say the things that you think they want to hear.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think you can come off, just saying all the buzzwords rather than being yourself and letting your authentic self to come out. So, and those are the things that I tested for. And when I believe that, hey, this person is a straight shooter, may not have all the right answers, but they're going to say, oh, you know what? I don't know the answer, but I'm going to go find out. So I think those things are things that I think, in any type of relationship, whether it's, manager, to a direct report, or even friends that you choose. It's like, do you want to be authentic, right?
Does this guy know what happened or how he got hired?
Yeah, I'm let him know. I let him know, like, hey, everybody was against you.
Well, I was saying, like, he's probably super grateful to you because he definitely was not gonna have that job if it wasn't for you.
I think he was, but ultimately, it was his. He's the one who worked hard, right?
Yeah.
Only thing I did was I tried to remove some obstacles where he could get in, but ultimately, I could have been on the. It's like, yep, you're right. You guys were right.
That's what I'm saying. The fact that he knew that you went to bat for him that hard, which, by the way, I've never heard of anyone getting hired when it's 1 vote out of 6 or 7 or whatever. Pretty crazy, I feel like. And so I don't know what you said in that meeting, but
yeah, and I wasn't like the decision maker. Like, there were 3 other interviewers that were at my level. So it was a team consensus, but I think I had enough credibility with my peers where they trusted that, hey, I told them, let's take a gamble on this. And if I'm wrong, I will be the first one to admit that I was wrong, but
Were you
I never
supposed
had
to?
to admit that, right?
Were you the hiring manager?
No, no, this person was going to report to someone else.
I was gonna say, I was like, all right, Mike, you can hire him, but he's yours.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, he did not report to me. I wish he reported to me, but it was for the betterment of the team, right? So I told the manager, I'm like, look, I just think you're not going to regret, going with him. So I think she was very happy too.
Yeah.
And
No, I was gonna say, like, I mean, he better have worked his butt off after he got in there because otherwise he would have
the,
made
inter-
you look real
yeah,
bad.
the interesting thing is, he's no longer there, obviously, but everywhere else he landed, he delivered. He worked hard. And so I think it's just who he is. I mean, and I think this is where I would say when somebody gets exposed or somebody proves themselves, it's hard to change who you are at the core. So, and just over time, who you are at your core will. So, if you're somebody who's taken shortcuts or didn't put in the effort or BS way through different things, you'll eventually get exposed.
Yeah, for sure.